My name is Pamela Smith, and today I'd like to discuss with you students with emotional disorders. Just about every week or every couple weeks in the news, we come across tragic news stories regarding how children have been abused by adults. It could be physically, emotionally, verbally. There's so many ways that adults have treated children in such horrendous ways. Just recently in our neck of the woods, I don't know if you would remember, but we had a daycare provider that was discovered that she was taking children when they are dropped off by their parents and locking them in dark rooms and closets, and then also placing young children in playpens and placing slabs of wood on top so that they would not be able to stand up or escape. And there were many signs of neglect and just terrible, just a terrible environment for these kids to be dropped off. And the parents didn't know, because when they dropped them off, it seemed like it was a perfectly normal living room and playroom, but the police uncovered what they were actually doing with the children, and that obviously closed down. And we're always usually grateful that these people have been caught and the abuse stops. But we have to ask ourselves, how will those children be affected long term? Are there long term consequences that come with that? And I think that yes, there are. And in studying and looking at students with emotional disorders, we can uncover why these children have such deep emotions that might erupt very quickly and very violently. Let's look at this quote from an article that I read. It said, in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the term emotional disturbance encompasses significant challenges in a student's behavior and mental health. It is important to know that when a child or a student is diagnosed with emotional disorder or disturbance, it affects both behavior and mental health, which includes how the person will process new information, which will affect his education. Many times, an emotional disorder is developed when there's a broken relationship with a trusted caregiver, and this could be obviously in areas of abuse, but that we would think of naturally, where there was physical abuse, with either food, taking food away, or um, just not caring for the child in a way that is fitting. Also, another way that emotional disorders could develop is because a traumatic experience happened when the child is young, and in those young stages of developmental phases of life, traumatic experiences will leave quite the imprint on the child's mind. There are friends of ours who have children who were removed from their parents and placed into foster care, and then our friends were able to adopt those children. But even now, 15 years later, those children, although they were only maybe 1 or 2 at the time, they still are reaping the consequences of the environment that they were living in. And it's hard for the adoptive parents to take this group of siblings and try to deal with each one, because each one has had different consequences from the traumatic experiences that they endured as very young children. I think emotional disorders are wrapped up in this quote. These young people are in a persistent state of alarm. We as educators can create a safe environment in our classrooms and within our relationship with these children. And it may be difficult to have patience with these children if they have multiple outbursts, or if they're unable to cope with transitions that they don't understand. But we need to keep in mind that if their mind is in a persistent state of alarm, we should be able to help provide them a small slice of security in their life, in their routines, and in how we deal with them in our classrooms. And hopefully that will help bring healing and allow them to learn skills to learn how to deal with their emotions. Thankfully, God has created us to be a very resilient people. Our brains are amazing, that they can have healing with them, and their children are able to just not ignore the trauma, but work through the trauma and overcome the difficulties that come with having traumatic experiences and lead themselves to a point where they can still have a successful life. It will not take away the consequences from the trauma, but they are able to have a life that is still um, able to be beneficial to themselves and to others. I mean, if you look, it's surprising that the presidents of the United States, almost half of them between 1789 and 1974, experienced some type of mental illness. And when we can point young children who look up to presidents, I mean, those are some pretty high, important people in their eyes. We as an adults can just view them as world leaders and know that there's hundreds, if not thousands, of world leaders in various countries around the world. So it doesn't seem as important or as high of a calling as it does, especially to younger elementary students. But we can point out, we know you're having a hard time, but some of these men did too. Michelangelo, an amazing artist. Rockefeller, obviously successful businessman. Terry Bradshaw, an athlete and now a newscaster, successful in both sides of the field, on the field and on the sidelines, commenting on it. Winston Churchill, a famous politician for England, also struggled with depression. And J.K. Rowling also has been noted to have some type of mental disorder. And many of these, if not all of these, should be names that would be mentioned to our students and that they would be able to connect who they are. And because of their being so famous, this would be a great project for students who are struggling with their emotional disorders to assign one, have them choose somebody from this list and to look into it and to see how they overcame their difficulties, just to encourage our own students that you are not alone and you have a role model that you can look up to see that they took different steps and they are able to still be successful in their life. And that can be encouraging to them in order to keep moving forward and keep building on the skills that we're trying to teach them. Like we said before, students with emotional disorders struggle with feeling secure. They feel vulnerable, they feel attacked, they may feel as if people are trying to take advantage of them. And I think we can allow them to feel the security in our classroom by just making sure that we have a very precise and orderly classroom management style. It also needs to be positive, but having the type of classroom management style that the child knows what to expect next, because we've given them that information, will allow that child to feel secure. When the child walks in the morning, there might be a list on the board and it says, today we're starting with math. Please go sharpen your pencils and put your lunch away. Just daily routines that are the same in and out. This isn't to take away the surprise factor of having something fun, but surprises aren't surprises if we do surprises all the time. So giving these students the regular routine throughout the day will help them. Also, when something does not go as planned, sometimes we can prevent outbursts or meltdowns with our students with emotional disorders by just giving them the tools to know what to do when that happens. Sometimes we may have to role play that, but we need to make sure that we're giving them a plan like, if your pencil breaks, this is what we will do next. And that way they have a plan. And the positive reinforcement for these students is very key. No matter how small, we need to encourage them when they make the right choices. Because as we all know, our emotions can be very overwhelming at times. And for young children, they might not know how to regulate that and understand what is important and what is not important. So when they make correct choices, we need to encourage them in that. And not just having them hear it from us as educators, but we need to teach our other students who are in the classroom with them to encourage them also. And this could be through just doing group activities or collaborative assignments, and also through tutoring, allowing these students with emotional disorders chances to create relationships and even develop friendships through those. The strengths of the students with emotional disorders, the studies that Armstrong cites all tend to show that these students can lean on the creative side, and they can try to adapt to their surroundings, and we can use creativity to connect both educational aspects um, with their strengths of whatever creative aspects that they're interested in. For instance, if they're interested in drawing, we could connect them with the chapter book that we are reading, either as a class or as an individual, and say, I would like you to create some illustrations for this book because this book doesn't come with any. Can you show me what you think is happening in this book through your drawings? Or sculpting could be connected to math when we're working with 3D shapes, and then allowing them to portray those or show them off to the classroom. Music, an assignment could be given to write a song regarding a topic that you're studying. And whether it's naming the bones or the different body organs, you connect music in so many different um, subject areas that it can be very versatile. Puppetry, having students act out a new story or a story that they've read that they've comprehended and they're able to retell. And then dance is just basic movement where you can connect a dance that goes with English, where you're doing adverbs and adjectives and they're acting them out through dance or through movement. So, I mean, all of these creative aspects can be used for a variety of subject areas. I want to go over a teaching idea called check-in, check out. And this is where we would determine what areas our students need to work on and create a chart. This is minimal money. You can just print one out. Let the other teachers that the student is involved with know what you're doing with this chart. You're creating a chart with small attainable goals so that the student isn't working on regulating his behavior for the entire day, but just for a 20-minute period or a 30-minute period. And then review the goals in the sticker chart with the student and let them know what he'll get if he works hard and is able to earn enough points to get a prize, whether it's doing something creative that interests him or gaining a physical prize, just a small trinket. And we create these attainable goals for the day or for the week and work towards them incrementally. And I think this check-in, check-out system allows the student to just focus very closely on what he's doing at the moment. Students with emotional disorders obviously have a lot to regulate, and we can give them small, attainable goals that was very helpful to them. So all in all, this will also help the student feel safe and secure and know what he's looking for, what he's working towards, and hopefully help with those emotional outbursts or meltdowns that may come naturally to him.